You will see the most interesting historical photos, as well as unusual objects from the past. Let's get 100,000 subscribers. Captured Chinese soldiers during the Korean War beg for their lives, mistakenly thinking that they will be executed. The year is 1951. The set of the horror movie Revenge of the Creature from the Black Lagoon. An actor in a monster costume goes to the beach while the crowd flees in panic. The year is 1955. A rare artifact from the 16th century arsenal is a shooting shield with a built-in barrel and a mirrored surface designed to dazzle the enemy with sunlight. The year is 1542. A rare shot of Hitler's visit to Paris. On June 23, 1940, he personally visited the city for the first and only time after its occupation. The year is 1940. An unusual moment of the Nutcracker Ballet rehearsal is when young ballerinas practice a scene with muskets in the training hall. Moscow, 1987. The last photo of Ernest Hemingway with his beloved shotgun. A month later, he would commit suicide, never waiting for the confession that the FBI was really watching him. 1961. A moment from a women's baseball game during World War II. The players in dresses and leggings give themselves up to the game with such passion that each slide looks like a scene from a musical. The year is 1944. Louis Armstrong humorously draws a trumpet on a fan's head during a tour in France. A rare moment when the king of jazz left an autograph right on the skin. The year is 1961. Retro frame with a touch of flirtation. A young man helps a girl get on a bike, but the moment clearly goes beyond the usual riding. Europe, the 1930s. A rare archival photograph shows the wedding ceremony of members of the Ku Klux Klan, which took place in the full uniform of the organization. USA, 1926. A crowd of Hungarians surrounds the toppled monument to Stalin in Budapest, a symbol of the fall of fear and the beginning of the uprising against the Soviet regime. October 1956. Fantastic view from the sky. Hundreds of paratroopers and cargo descend from airplanes during the air parade in Tushino, under the command of Vasily Stalin. USSR, August 1948. An officer in protective gear collects dead fish on the shore of a polluted reservoir in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, the first weeks after the accident. June 1986. Strongman George Challer demonstrates superhuman endurance. His partner bends a metal pipe right on his neck. London, 1935. Belgrade is on fire after a NATO airstrike overnight. The streets are empty. The sky is ablaze. The city has been turned into a flaming ghost. Yugoslavia, 1999. A rare surviving ticket for the Titanic is a third-class document with a sailing date of April 10, 1912, which became a silent witness to one of the greatest maritime tragedies in history. The year is 1912. The joint crew of the Soyuz Apollo mission is the first international spaceflight, which became a symbol of détente at the height of the Cold War. The year is 1975. A woman in traditional clothes carries a sewing machine on her head, a scene from everyday life in Kuwait before the era of the oil boom. The year is 1955. Adolf Hitler and the top leadership of the Wehrmacht are watching a demonstration of a remote-controlled model of the Super Heavy Mouse tank at the Wolf's Lair headquarters. May 14, 1943. Leonid Brezhnev, during his morning swim under the supervision of guards, Party discipline extended even to the pool. USSR, 1970. A photograph of the legendary man-eating crocodile killed in Australia. Its length was 8.6 meters, and it was considered a threat to the entire region. The year is 1957. Lieutenant Colonel Anatoly Lebed, nicknamed Russian Rambo, poses with a machine gun against the backdrop of the Afghan desert, the iconic image of a Soviet Special Forces soldier. Afghanistan, 1987. Children look through the fence at the amusement park, where they are forbidden to enter because of racial segregation, a silent rebuke to the era that divided childhood by skin color. USA, 1958. World War II veteran Dean McCandless holds his young photo, a paratrooper who completed all 4 major Allied landings: Sicily, Italy, Normandy, and the Netherlands. Portrait of a girl from the Victorian era. At that time, long, loose hair was considered a symbol of femininity and virtue. 1860, 1900 years. Members of the Italian royal family on horseback at the palace. An exquisite scene with children on ponies and parents on horseback. The year, 1905. The woman with the sign "blind" is a licensed beggar who is officially allowed to beg on the streets. New York, 1916. The first king of Saudi Arabia, Ibn Saud, surrounded by his sons, Prince Faisal, left, and Prince Saud, right, the future rulers of the kingdom. The beginning of the 1950s. Fred Rogers, a beloved children's presenter, visits 7-year-old Beth Asher in the hospital after brain surgery. He gave her a puppet show right by her bed. Baltimore, 1987. Actress Diana Dors poses in front of a crowd of paparazzi at the Cannes Film Festival. Glitter, flashbulbs, and the atmosphere of the golden era of cinema. The year is 1956. An American soldier selects furs in an Arkhangelsk store during the Allied intervention in Russia. The showcase, cash register, and signs in Russian convey the atmosphere of the post-revolutionary North. The year is 1919. An Arab hunter, with a peregrine falcon, a rifle, and a traditional dagger jambia in the desert, the ancient art of falconry, against the backdrop of harsh landscapes. UAE, 1949. The street market in Mukden, now Shenyang, after World War II. The Japanese who remained in China are selling their last possessions, trying to survive in the chaos of the post-war period. The year is 1946. FBI Director John Edgar Hoover practices firing a Thompson submachine gun at a shooting range, a symbol of his tough approach to fighting crime. The year is 1936. The rare iron mask of the executioner of the 16th century is a terrifying symbol of power and anonymity, used to hide the face during executions. The 1500s. The Soviet Tu-114 Rossiya, the largest passenger aircraft of its time, arrived in New York, where the stairs were too low for its giant doors. USA, 1959. A shot from a fashion photo shoot for the French magazine. Vogue. Cyclists in identical uniforms ride in a column through the streets of the city. France, 1971. A scuba diver with an experimental underwater movie camera from the 1950s and 60s, a bulky device that allowed filming in conditions of complete tightness and pressure. Graduation ceremony at the U.S. Naval Academy. Dozens of cadets in white uniforms run through the hall under the gaze of even ranks and hundreds of spectators on balconies. Annapolis, Maryland, 1917. An advertisement for the Titanic flight from an old newspaper found during repairs. It was printed before the disaster of 1912. This 1975 photo captures English actress Susan Shaw in a typical look for the era. A miniskirt, platform boots, and a confident pose that attracts the attention of passers-by. Anne Frank, writing in her diary. Summer, 1942, Amsterdam. A few weeks later, her family would go underground, where Anna would keep records that became one of the most poignant testimonies of the Holocaust. DuPont fire-resistant plastic testing, 1966. The flame does not damage the protective hood, a demonstration of reliability for industry and space. France, 1917. The crashed airship lies in a field. There are curious locals and military around. Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro on the set. The early 1970s is the time when their legendary creative friendship began. Elizabeth Taylor, 17, bathes her dog named Amy in honor of her role in the movie Little Women. Hollywood, early 1950s. One of the first beer vending machines was installed in London in 1937. He allowed you to get a cold jar for a few coins. Then it seemed like a real miracle of technology. The novelty quickly became popular among the British because beer in a can was just beginning to conquer the market. Jesse Dixon's flying car, 1940. The device is equipped with a 40-horsepower air-cooled engine and reached speeds of up to 160 km/h. Its unique design allowed it to fly up, forward, and even backward, a true precursor to modern air cars. Futuristic baby carriage, West Germany, the 1950s. The design is inspired by automotive shapes, streamlined body, chrome, low slung. David Bowie as Pharaoh, the 1970s. One of his most daring photo shoots, emphasizing the simultaneous connection with antiquity and the future. This is a periscope, X-ray device from shoe stores in the middle of the 20th century. The buyer inserted his feet inside, and the seller watched how the foot was placed inside the shoe. It later became clear that regular radiation exposure was dangerous to health. The photo shows the legendary Mormon Meteor, the car of Ab Jenkins, on which he drove a record 3253 km per day in 1935. The average speed is 217 km/h. The picture was taken on the salt flats of Bonneville, USA. An amusement park attraction called Flying Cars, 1950s. The drum was spinning, and people could slow down so as not to make a full turn. They fastened it securely. Pilots of the Strategic Supersonic Reconnaissance Aircraft of the U.S. Air Force SR-71 pose in their sealed uniforms, 1980s. A Kazakh in traditional clothes on a camel at the launch pad of the Baikonur Cosmodrome. The background is a Soyuz rocket during transportation to the launch table. USSR, early 1980s. Men pass cheese heads to each other at a market in Alkmaar, the Netherlands, circa 1900. Such a chain is a traditional way of unloading and sorting. Thomas Edison, next to the Edison Baker electric car, 1895. Even then, he considered electric traction to be more promising than gasoline, quieter, safer, and odorless. At the beginning of the 20th century, full-fledged charging stations existed in U.S. cities, and the service even included night washing and battery replacement. 1968, Vietnam. A U.S. infantryman points out a target, while his partner fires an M60 machine gun. This shot became a symbol of intense close combat in the jungle during the Tet Offensive. The year is 1943. A Grumman F-6F Hellcat fighter crashes into another aircraft while landing on an aircraft carrier, a split-second shot before the crash. The year is 1325. A real war broke out between the Italian cities of Bologna and Modena. A reason? A wooden bucket. The soldiers of Modena, having invaded the enemy's territory, stole a simple bucket from the city well of Bologna as a symbol of humiliation. The Bolognese demanded his return, but Modena refused. Then Bologna declared war. The confrontation lasted 22 years. Thousands died. The bucket remained with the victorious Modena, in the museum, under glass, as a trophy of the most senseless war in history. 1923, the city beach in Amsterdam. A simple summer scene, bathers, children, and even a stroller by the shore. In post-war Europe, such moments were especially valuable, rare moments of relaxation in the midst of a difficult daily life. 1944, the liberated city of Bibbiena, Italy. American soldiers staged an impromptu Christmas procession. Santa Claus, an angel, enter the city on a tank. Even against the background of the war, people found a way to give a little celebration. The year is 1901. The glider of the German-American inventor Gustav Whitehead. According to an alternative version of aviation history, it was he, and not the Wright brothers, who first took to the air in an airplane with an engine 2 years before their famous flight. The debate about this is still ongoing. 1915, London. There is an inscription, "We are Russians," on the shop window. This was how the owners tried to protect their property from attacks. At that time, pogroms of German shops swept across Britain due to anti-German sentiments against the background of the First World War. The year is 1963. The U.S. military and German border guards are talking on the border between East and West Germany. Such meetings were a rare moment of informal contact on both sides of the Iron Curtain during the Cold War. The year is 1946. Residents of Bikini Atoll are being evacuated before a series of U.S. nuclear tests. In total, 167 people were resettled from here, not knowing that their homeland would become a testing ground for 67 explosions, including a hydrogen bomb. 4 days after the first explosion, a bikini swimsuit was presented on the other side of the world. The name was chosen for a reason: explosive effect on the public. Lead nipple pads, 19th century. They were advertised as shields to protect the inflamed nipples of nursing women. Doctors believed that the metal accelerates healing and relieves pain. The toxicity of lead was not suspected at that time. Such products only aggravated the poisoning of the body. Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell relax on the set of the movie Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 1952. The scene between takes, one adjusts her makeup, the other drinks from a glass, both in shiny suits and heels. A Yemenite rabbi listens to the radio, 1935. The photo shows a rare moment of combining tradition and technology. In ritual attire, with a prayer scarf, waist, he sits next to a lamp radio, as if catching the voice of the world through the noise of the ether. Beach fashion, 1945-1950. Men in striped jumpsuits humorously pose next to a girl in a more modern swimsuit. Princess Ileana of Romania, 1920s. The daughter of King Ferdinand of Furker, she is known for her beauty, charity work, and the fact that during the Second World War she founded a hospital for wounded soldiers right in her own home. Elvis Presley helps to style Johnny Cash's hair, 1960. The two legendary musicians of the early rock and roll era not only performed together, but also shared behind the scenes moments like this friendly gesture before going on stage. Brigitte Bardot, 1960. The French actress and style icon poses on a racing Ferrari during the races, a shot that perfectly captures the atmosphere of the golden era of motorsport and European glamour. An African king sitting on the shoulders of a subject under an umbrella is a symbol of power and status in a traditional society. The photo was taken in German East Africa in 1913, on the eve of large-scale colonial upheavals, when such scenes were still part of the daily life of local rulers. Jim Morrison and Pamela Corson in Los Angeles, 1969. Their relationship was stormy, complicated, and legendary. Pamela inspired Morrison's lyrics and poems, was his muse and the closest person to him, despite passion, scandals, and addiction. Sean Penn, 1982. This shot was taken on the set of the cult youth comedy Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where he played carefree surfer Jeff Spicoli. A Woman in a Corset, 1899. The slim waist was a fashion obsession back then. Corsets tightened the body so that even the arrangement of organs changed. Beauty comes through pain, but it was believed that this was how a real lady should look. Young Women on the Island of Marken, Holland, 1890, 1900. There are wooden bedbugs on their feet and embroidered caps on their heads. These girls do not pose, but simply came to the bay for water, as their mothers and grandmothers did. Shaanxi, China, 1930. Three girls with bandaged feet are standing on the street, victims of the centuries, old tradition of foot bandaging, which turned them into painful golden lotuses. A tiny leg was considered a symbol of beauty and status, but behind the grace lay suffering, crippled bones, and limited mobility for life.